This right here is one of my favorite books of all time. When I was around 10 or 11 years old, I went to a concert by Pollini, and sure enough, he was able to sign it for me, which was absolutely fantastic. And it's stories like these that make me think real books and real sheet music just have so much history. You can see how you developed also as a musician, right? Not only for the piano, for any musician, but recently, of course, the tablets, the iPads are kind of winning the fight. There are genuine advantages of having sheet music and genuine advantages of using tablets or iPads, and of course disadvantages, which is what I would like to talk about today. Let's talk about sheet music first and its advantages. First aspect, no reflection and no glare issues. This will do perfectly fine under any light conditions. Doesn't matter if I'm outside, indoors, lighting is reflecting, no problem at all. Because the texture of the paper is matte, it actually absorbs and doesn't reflect so much, which is great for seeing it clearly. This might be not a problem when you're practicing at home, but as soon as you get to that concert venue, you might find out, oh no, I can't even see my tablet. I literally had that situation. For some reason, they installed a light right above the piano and it was reflecting right off the tablet. So what I had to do is I had to angle the note stand differently so that the reflective issues wouldn't come into play. Second reason, how long does it take for you to boot up your sheet music? It doesn't take any time at all, right? And obviously included in that is that you don't have to charge your book. It's literally ready anytime. Battery life is a genuine issue and a genuine plus for sheet music because you will never have that problem. Free, and this is a big one, certain editions of certain scores only exist in paper or print format. Let's get this bad boy out. Theoretically, you can find it online, either by the seller if they offer a PDF version or they have an app, but I will tell you this is not always the case. And if not, then you must make sure that it is the latest and greatest version and not some Henle edition from 50 years ago. And some literally only exist in printed format, especially if it's difficult to find, more obscure, or you want a specific edition from a specific publisher, you might only get it in print form. So that's something to watch out for. The next thing I would like to talk about is spatial memory, because you might not think about it, but it's a very spatial experience to play the piano. For some people, this is very important. For some others, not. But generally, you can remember a piece also better by knowing sort of where you are, and you build a spatial awareness. So it could be just a little bit of a help, or it could be a massive help, depending on how important it is for you to remember that layout. And the last big plus point for sheet music, no blue light, no screen time. This is also a big problem for me. I use tablets basically almost exclusively now, except if it's a certain edition I like. Screen time obviously is going to be an issue here if you're staring into effectively a screen for the entire time. Sheet music also eliminates all of that because it's just, there's no screen involved. Now I will point out some downsides of actual sheet music in book form. You might have made the experience of, you have to travel with a lot of books, and it would be much easier to just have one tablet and everything's on that iPad. Especially someone who's doing a lot of accompanying other people, this would be a complete nightmare. Page turning is much more painful on normal printed music. I mean, if you can do it well, then you can do it. I mean, I've been doing it for such a long time. You would either have to take freedom during playing, or you need to hire a page turner. The last downside I would say for the printed format is you don't have any backups. So if you lose your book, that's gone. Obviously, if you lose your iPad, it's gone too. But you may have done backups of your sheet music or your documents in general. But yeah, once a book is gone, it's gone. So yeah. Now let's get to the tablets. And one obvious big advantage right off the beginning, I would say, is that you can store as many pieces as you like. Well, depending on the capacity of your device, obviously. This makes it infinitely easier to actually manage and carry around. And that, I think, is one of the strongest points for the tablet overall. If you do attach a Bluetooth pedal to your tablet or iPad, you can page turn hands-free, which is great if you're playing something that you're not 100% sure about, or of course if you're doing any ensemble work, or if it's just contemporary and you want to be using a pedal for turning the pages. I think that's one of the big advantages. You just have to be careful that it doesn't slip away, so it needs to have enough grip. and they're a bit tricky because having that fourth pedal sometimes does trip you up. So I would say if you do that, definitely practice with the Bluetooth pedal. Next are annotations, and this is one of my personal favorites because on a PDF file or any editor that you use, you can actually have annotations really clean. You can have different colors, different layers. You can hide different layers. And this is, I think, much easier to manage than pen and paper and erasing and, having different colors there. Also, depending on the app, you can actually click on it and you can see when did you write that annotation. Obviously, paper formats are usually bigger than iPads and tablets, which is an advantage for the sheet music, like the printed format. But I have to say the ability to zoom is something that, you can get closer to it, of course, but you can make it really large. And if there's something that's not exactly sure, you can take advantage of that and you can see it very clearly, which is, I think, a massive advantage of that format. You can do backups. You never lose your files if you do like cloud backups and then you re-download it, even if you lose the iPad. So I think really, just in case you have something very important that you're working on, or you don't want to lose any annotations, fingerings, that kind of stuff, then I would say this makes sense. This is probably not something that everyone will make use of, and some people might think, well, I don't need a backup. Everything is up here, right? But I would say still it would be safer to have it just in case. Obviously, the biggest disadvantage is going to be reflectivity issues. It's a real problem. You need a very bright device. That's the first thing. Obviously, that's going to drain the battery life more, but you may have still reflectivity issues no matter how bright you turn the screen, especially if you're playing outside. Number two, battery updates, software crashing, or there's a software update schedule that you didn't know about and it just decides to do it all of a sudden, or at least it pops up a screen that you have to dismiss during your performance. That would be catastrophic. And lastly, increased screen time, blue light emission, all of this, which is what we talked about in the beginning already. An advantage for paper is that it doesn't strain your eyes so hard, whereas obviously you're adding more screen time by looking into an iPad rather than looking at paper. You can see things more clearly, especially if you increase contrasts, increase brightness and things like this. At the end of the day, you're still looking into a screen, which can reduce the amount of times you blink, and that can lead to like eye strain and other things. So here's the big question for you now. Which one do you prefer? I will tell you, it's not that I prefer the tablet more. It's just that as a working musician, I think that's the way to go. You have to go to places or you're teaching and you don't really have the time or the space to carry every book that all of your students are doing or every book that you're planning for your next recital everywhere. I think nowadays the tablet wins, even though I have some books that are my absolute favorites and I would never trade them for any iPad screen time in the world. We can continue this conversation on the Pract.is community page. It's brand new. There's a link in the description. We talk about music, about Pract.is. Of course, if you have any questions, you can also ask there. Also, obviously check out Pract.is. It has plenty of new features, which I recommend you check out. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.